Stop searching online asking why your plant keeps collapsing. The truth is, the answer has been sitting right in front of you the entire time. You simply never learned how to interpret the warning signs hidden inside the leaves. Research from university extension studies reveals that more than 90% of houseplant failures can be traced back to only 5 major nutrient shortages. Every single deficiency leaves behind its own visual signature, almost like a fingerprint burned onto the plant itself. Yet most people keep guessing blindly when the pattern was already there, waiting to be understood. Once you recognize the exact marking your plant is displaying, everything changes. You can identify the right kitchen ingredient, create a simple recovery mixture for almost no cost, and begin seeing signs of improvement within just a few days. No expensive formulas, no random experiments, no wasting money on products your plant never needed in the first place. But there is one symptom among these 5 that nearly every gardener misunderstands. And the solution to that specific problem is the exact opposite of what most people instinctively do. That mistake alone destroys countless plants every year. In this guide, we are breaking everything down step by step. First comes the real reason plants fail, and why most common care routines completely miss the actual issue. After that, we move through all 5 nutrient patterns one by one. You identify the symptom, match it to the proper ingredient, and follow the exact preparation method. Finally, you will get a simple weekly recovery routine with clear measurements for container plants and garden soil, plus 3 common myths that are probably sabotaging your efforts right now. Think of this as a 10-minute field manual for plant diagnosis. Stay through the final section, because the weekly schedule is the part most people ignore, and that is exactly why their plants recover temporarily, only to decline again later. Here is what many home gardeners never fully realize. You can pour in endless water, increase sunlight exposure, and dump generic fertilizer into the soil every week. None of that matters if the one nutrient your plant truly lacks is never replaced. The entire system stalls because the missing element becomes the bottleneck. Back in 1840, German scientist Justus von Liebig introduced what became known as the law of the minimum. His principle was simple but devastatingly important. Plant growth is restricted not by the nutrients that are abundant, but by the single nutrient available in the smallest amount. In plain terms, flooding a plant with nitrogen or potassium achieves nothing if calcium is the resource it desperately needs. You are pouring into the wrong container while the real shortage keeps worsening underneath. This is why the next part matters so much. Each of the 5 core elements in this guide, nitrogen, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and beneficial microbes, creates a different visible pattern when deficiency begins. Universities, including Cornell University and the University of Arizona Extension programs, have documented these signals extensively. Those patterns are not random damage. They are diagnostic codes. Today, you are using those codes like a field decoder. You examine the leaf pattern, connect it to the correct ingredient, and apply the proper treatment. No laboratory soil testing, no expensive gadgets, no guessing. And one of these 5 ingredients does not actually nourish the plant directly at all. Instead, it feeds another living system beneath the soil. That hidden system then performs the real recovery work for the plant itself. Now we begin with the most common warning sign seen in home gardens everywhere. If the leaves are turning evenly yellow from the bottom upward, you are most likely looking at nitrogen deficiency. Here is why that specific pattern appears. Nitrogen can move freely inside the plant. When reserves begin running low, the plant starts pulling nitrogen out of older lower leaves and redirecting it toward fresh growth near the top. The bottom leaves lose their stored nutrients first, so they fade into yellow as the plant sacrifices old tissue to protect new development. The low-cost rescue method uses rice water. Take 1/4 cup of uncooked rice with absolutely no salt added. Place it into 2 cups of plain water and allow it to soak for 24 hours. After soaking, strain the liquid away from the rice. Then dilute that liquid at a ratio of 1 part rice water to 5 parts normal water before soaking the soil thoroughly. Apply this treatment once every 2 weeks. One mistake ruins the entire process instantly. Using salted water or hot water. Salt damages the root system, while heat destroys many of the useful compounds released during soaking. Always work with room temperature water and plain unsalted rice only. Under proper conditions, fresh leaves should begin showing healthier green coloration within roughly 7 to 10 days. The damaged yellow leaves near the bottom usually do not recover because that tissue has already deteriorated beyond repair. But the important sign is that the decline stops spreading and new growth begins strengthening from the top again. That covers nitrogen deficiency. But the next symptom is where many gardeners get fooled because it looks deceptively similar while requiring a completely different solution. When the outer edges of older leaves begin turning dark brown, almost scorched, while the middle section stays green, your plant is signaling something very specific. In many cases, the leaf tips start bending downward as well. That pattern points directly toward potassium deficiency. Potassium controls internal water balance inside plant cells. Once potassium levels fall too low, the cells along the edges of the leaves lose pressure before anything else. Those tissues dry first, then they collapse and die. The burned appearance you notice around the margins is the visible result of that breakdown. The recovery method is surprisingly simple. Onion peel tea. Collect 4 to 5 dried onion skins and place them into 1 liter of water. Bring the mixture to a boil and keep it heating for 10 minutes. Afterward, allow the liquid to cool fully before using it. Once cooled, pour the tea directly into the soil without dilution. Repeat this treatment once every week. But there is an important warning many people overlook. Never apply onion tea to completely dry soil. If the growing medium lacks moisture already, the concentrated solution creates osmotic stress instead of helping. Rather than feeding the roots, it begins pulling water away from them. Always moisten the soil first with regular water. Only then should the onion mixture be added. That is how potassium deficiency is corrected safely. Now we move into a symptom that looks entirely different from the previous patterns. Small yellow markings begin forming between the veins of the leaf, while the veins themselves remain green and visible. This condition is known as intervenal chlorosis, and it is one of the clearest indicators of magnesium deficiency. Magnesium plays a unique role inside the plant because it sits at the center of every chlorophyll molecule. Chlorophyll is the system responsible for capturing sunlight and converting it into usable energy. Without magnesium, the plant's energy network begins failing like a damaged solar panel losing power. The discoloration appears between the veins, because that tissue is where chlorophyll production is working hardest. When magnesium becomes scarce, those zones are the first to weaken visibly. The solution here is Epsom salt, also known as magnesium sulfate. But the method matters just as much as the ingredient itself. Do not soak the soil with it first. Instead, apply it directly onto the foliage as a spray. Mix 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt into 1 gallon of water. Pour the mixture into a spray bottle and coat both the upper and lower surfaces of the leaves once every 2 weeks. There are 2 major mistakes that repeatedly damage plants during this stage. The first is using Epsom salt as a soil drench only. While it can still function that way, absorption happens much more slowly. A foliar spray delivers magnesium into the leaves within hours instead of days. The second mistake is spraying too frequently. Applying it more often than every 2 weeks increases the risk of leaf burn. Stay disciplined with the interval. That covers magnesium deficiency. Earlier, there was mention of one nutrient problem that gardeners misdiagnose more than any other. This is the one. Imagine the newest leaves on the plant beginning to blacken around the edges. The tips darken into deep brown or black tones. Fresh growth twists inward, curls unnaturally, and loses its normal shape. In tomato plants, blossom end rot may appear as well. Most gardeners look at these burned edges and immediately assume fertilizer damage. Some stop feeding altogether, others dump in additional nitrogen trying to revive growth. Both reactions push the plant further toward collapse. Because this is not nitrogen overload at all, this is calcium deficiency. And the proper response is almost the opposite of what most people instinctively do. Calcium behaves differently from nitrogen because it cannot move freely once placed inside the plant. After calcium reaches tissue, it stays locked in place. The nutrient is directed first into developing growth, especially young leaves and expanding tips. That means when calcium supply begins dropping, the newest tissue suffers before the older leaves ever show symptoms. Fresh growth becomes distorted first because the plant cannot relocate stored calcium from older sections. The low-cost correction uses eggshell vinegar. Take 4 to 6 eggshells, dry them thoroughly, then crush them into smaller pieces. Place the shells inside a jar and pour in 1 cup of plain white vinegar. The bubbling reaction you see is calcium being released from the shells into the liquid. Allow the mixture to react for approximately 5 minutes. Strain away the shell fragments afterward. Then dilute the remaining liquid at a ratio of 1 part. Concentrate to 10 parts water before applying it directly into the soil every 2 weeks. When properly diluted, this remedy is generally viewed as safe around pets and children. However, the concentrated mixture should always remain stored out of reach. If you have concerns involving animals, consult your veterinarian for guidance. One final reminder matters more than people realize. When you see this symptom, do not immediately grab a nitrogen fertilizer. Pause first. Study the leaves carefully and ask one critical question. Is the damage appearing on old leaves or on new growth? If the older leaves are deteriorating first, you're likely dealing with nitrogen deficiency. But if the newest leaves are the first tissue collapsing, calcium is the real problem. That single question prevents one of the most common diagnostic failures in home gardening. The fifth pattern is the one that confuses people the most because it does not appear as one dramatic symptom. The entire plant simply seems exhausted. Growth slows down, leaves lose color and appear washed out. Sometimes the roots turn brown, soft, or slimy when inspected closely. Nothing looks catastrophic by itself. Yet the whole plant feels frozen in place as if development has completely stalled. Here is the reality most gardeners are never taught. Plants cannot directly absorb the majority of nutrients sitting in the soil around them. Those nutrients first need to be processed by a living network of microorganisms underground. That microscopic ecosystem breaks raw material into forms the roots are actually capable of using. When that microbial community collapses because of overwatering, excessive chemical treatments, or heavily compacted soil, the plant becomes locked out of its own food supply. Nutrients may still exist in the soil, but the plant can no longer access them efficiently. The recovery method for this problem is a fermented vegetable scrap solution. Take roughly 1 cup of chopped vegetable leftovers. Do not use garlic, onions, or citrus. Add 1 tablespoon of sugar, a small pinch of salt, and 1 liter of water. Cover the container loosely and leave it sitting at room temperature for 48 hours. Once fermentation is complete, dilute the mixture at a ratio of 1 part concentrate to 20 parts water. Apply it once every week for 4 consecutive weeks. When diluted correctly, the solution is generally considered safe around most household pets. However, keep the concentrated jar sealed tightly and stored out of reach. If you have concerns involving animal safety, consult your veterinarian before use. There is one mistake that completely destroys the effectiveness of this method: using onion or garlic scraps. Both ingredients contain antimicrobial compounds. In other words, you would be attempting to grow beneficial microorganisms using substances that actively kill them. Stick with neutral vegetable material instead. Carrots, celery, bell peppers, and leafy greens work far better for rebuilding soil biology. At this point, you now have all 5 diagnostic matches. But another danger still remains. Many gardeners correctly identify the symptom, then sabotage the recovery by applying treatments the wrong way. So, before moving on, here is the simplest system for using these remedies effectively, along with 3 myths still causing major damage in home gardens everywhere. Every Sunday morning, inspect 3 zones on your plant carefully. Start with the oldest leaves near the bottom. Then, study the middle-aged foliage. Finally, examine the newest leaf tips and fresh growth. Match the symptom pattern you see against the 5 deficiency fingerprints. Once you identify the closest match, apply only 1 remedy at a time. Never combine 2 different treatments on the same day. For plants growing inside containers, reduce every recipe to half strength. In confined pots, minerals build up faster, and the environment becomes much more sensitive to concentration changes. For open garden beds, use the full recommended amount. After applying any treatment, wait a complete 7 days before judging the results. Plant recovery is not instant. The process requires patience. Trust the timeline. Now it is time to destroy 3 myths that continue misleading gardeners every single year. The first myth claims rice water contains dangerous arsenic and should never be used around plants. That rumor spread rapidly online, but the actual science tells a different story. Arsenic present in rice mainly accumulates inside the grain during growth. A cold 24-hour soak using uncooked rice and plain water does not release meaningful arsenic levels into the liquid. Food safety studies, including research supported by the USDA, indicate that cold-soaked rice water is considered safe for plant use. Now for the second myth. Many people believe they can combine all 5 remedies into one powerful super mixture and fix everything simultaneously. Do not do this. Several ingredients in these treatments contain completely different pH balances and conflicting chemical properties. Once mixed together, the reactions become unpredictable. In some cases, the ingredients may even neutralize each other and destroy the intended benefits entirely. Always apply the remedies separately. Leave at least 3 to 5 days between different treatments. Now, the third myth. Fresh manure is often promoted as a fast nitrogen boost. But raw manure can severely damage roots because of extremely high ammonia levels. It may also introduce harmful pathogens into the garden. If manure is going to be used safely, it should age for a minimum of 1 year before application. An easier alternative is worm castings. They provide similar nitrogen benefits while being far gentler on the plant itself. And unlike fresh manure, they will not leave your neighbors complaining about the smell drifting across the yard. Now let's reduce everything down to the simplest possible version. Your plant is not failing silently, it is communicating constantly. Every visible pattern on the leaf is a message revealing which one of 5 nutrients has become limited. And now you finally have the decoder. Each deficiency pattern connects to a nearly free kitchen ingredient, an exact preparation method, and a realistic recovery window. No blind guessing, no overpriced solutions, no wasting money on products your plant never needed. Pick one plant today, find the symptom that matches most closely, apply a single treatment, then wait 7 days before making another adjustment. That is the entire lazy gardener diagnostic system. And remember the warning from the beginning, because it remains the most commonly misunderstood pattern of all. Dark twisted growth appearing on the newest leaves is usually calcium deficiency, not fertilizer burn. The correct response is eggshell vinegar, not cutting nutrients away. Most gardeners do the exact opposite and accidentally make the damage worse. Now you know how to read the signals your plant has been sending all along. Go inspect one of your plants right now, find the closest matching symptom, and share which pattern you think it is. Maybe nitrogen, maybe potassium, maybe something else entirely. Your plant already revealed the answer. Happy gardening.